sa bisa ng Philippine Independence Act noong 1934, ipinag-utos po ang pagbuo ng Constitutional Convention na siyang naging daan sa pagkakaroon ng 1935 Constitution. Ito po, ang nagbigay po ng utos dito ay ang mga Amerikano uli. Sinabihan po nila tayo na bumuo kayo ng konkon at gumawa kayo ng 1935 natin Constitution. Malinaw po yan. Mga Pilipino na po. Hinayaan na po tayong gumawa ng sarili natin. At yan po, pagkatapos natin gawin, pinadala po yan sa bansang Amerika, pinabasa sa presidente nila, at ito po ay inapprove ng kanilang presidente, pinalik po sa atin, nagkaroon po tayo ng plebisito noong Mayo 14, 1935. Yan po ay na-approve. Ayun na po ang gumawa niyan, nagtagumpay na po. At dito po pinanganak yung tinatawag nating Commonwealth.
So that we will have flexibility, give to Congress the decision to contract or expand the participation of foreign money, direct investment into our economy. After all, they cannot take out this factory and bring it home. They cannot take out the land that they will produce if they reclaim around all the islands of the country. It stays here. Can't tell them go home. But we should not do that, because nobody will ever come and help us if we do that. We must be friendly to foreign business as everyone else on the planet. From Timbuktu all the way to the Arctic Circle and Antarctic.
Mahal na panauhin, ibig niyo pong sabihin, doon po sa provision, na banggit niyo po yung sa lupa. Sa provision po doon sa konstitusyon kasi ayos, bawal nga po magkaroon ng ang foreigner. Palagay niyo po, panahon na po para payagan po sila.
Kaya pag-insert mo yung unless provided by law, ang Kongreso ang magsasabi kung 60-40 yan. Pero pwedeng baguhin, pwedeng gawing 20-70 or 55-45 ang hatian or 100% foreigner kung nuclear plant, halimbawa. Mahal na ngayon, ginagawa yung Bataan. Magkano ba yung Bataan nuclear plant? $16 million. Ngayon, yung $16 million na yun, kung ginawa natin, billion dollar na ngayon yun. At hindi lang yun. Kung hindi sinira yung planta na yun, mas nauna po tayo sa Iran at saka sa North Korea na magkaroon ng nuclear bomb. At hindi tayo inaapi ng mga ibang bansa. Kalukuhan yung utak ng mga gumawa niyan eh.
Idolo, Senator Jinggoy Estrada.
Sabayan mo ito. Amendments na ito. This will make you prosperous.
Nagpapasalamat po tayo sa ating nag-iisang alamat, ang naglalakad na kasaysayan ng Inang Bayang Pilipinas, ang amin pong personal na idolo at tagapagpayo, ang kasalukuyang Chief Presidential Legal Counsel ng Pangulo ng Pilipinas at ang dati pong Senate President, Juan Ponce Enrile. Isang magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Salamat, Mr. Chairman. Unang-una, nagpapasalamat ako sa anyaya ninyo sa akin na dumalo dito sa napakamahalagang usapin tungkol sa mga pagbabago sa mga ilang portion o parte ng saligang batas natin. Ako po ay dumalo dito ay appear in my personal capacity. I do not represent the President or the presidency in whatever I say here. Although I sought the permission of the President and told him that Your Honor invited me to come here to participate in this proceeding, very important proceeding, and he agreed. I'm ready to answer all the questions that you have in mind, but I would like to tell you that I think your agenda, your direction is the right thing. I've read some of the drafts and proposals that you want to do and to make as a part of our Constitution. And if I were in this House this time, I would have supported you 101%, because those are the most important things that must be done to make this country progressive, safe, and modernized. First of all, the economic provisions are antiquated. We do not have the capital to develop the economy of this country to improve the life of a great majority of our people. We can develop this country only if we relax the restrictive provisions, economic provisions of the Constitution. Second, I would like to add to your efforts that we must now remove the restriction imposed by the Cory administration on this country and her people not to have any nuclear in the country. I think, in my personal opinion, that is the most serious and unwanted provision of the Constitution. In the modern world today, a small country can protect itself against the superpowers if they have nuclear weapons. We should remove that restriction and make the country flexible. If we can afford it, we should also have nuclear weapons so that our people will not be trampled upon, let alone made a tuta or a lipin of other countries. We must be sure that we make our people equal, if not better than others. And we need to have an alternative fuel to run our economy, because oil and natural gas are finite things. The supply is dwindling, and those that were lucky enough to have these raw materials abundantly in their country will make it very difficult to be available to those of us who do not have it. And the only alternative fuel that we can have is either we cut all our trees or we use nuclear power plants to run the economy of the country. No country is exempted in this. No country can develop unless you have electricity. That is the blood for any country to develop its economy and to provide the best life for her people. So I would propose that you include in your efforts an amendment to the Constitution, to the 1987 Constitution, and remove the restriction imposed by the Cory government and make our country flexible. If we have the money, we can buy nuclear weapons, just like buying an aircraft or a battleship or a cannon to protect our people. And if we do not have enough fuel to create electricity, then we can buy uranium nuclear rods to run a nuclear plant like Ukraine and provide our people the convenience arising from the use of nuclear power to run our economy. The political provisions, Mr. Chair, can be separated from the economic and other provisions that I've mentioned. That can take time to handle. Second, in the manner of accomplishing the task that you want to do, to accomplish, I would suggest that you follow what you have been suggesting. Let it be done by Congress itself, not as a legislative body, but as a constituent assembly. There's nothing esoteric or unusual in these amendments. If we want to change the form of government, either we can go back to the 1935 Constitution or we just adopt the 1973 Constitution, because the 1935 Constitution is a presidential system. The 1973 Constitution is a parliamentary form of government which is being used almost by all nations on the planet with varying differences. There's nothing unusual about that. Both types of government have their own deficiencies, but they're workable if the leaders are true to their faith in serving the country and her people instead of serving themselves. Now, I would caution everyone to be very careful about federalism. I don't think there's anybody in this country that can very well say, I know what a federalized system is. There are so many types. But the English type is the oldest one, and still it is also complicated. I have here a draft of the proposal made by the Pulo Commission. And I submitted this material with all my observations to the previous administration, and that is why they became quiet about it. It is expensive, which the economy of this country at this time cannot afford, and complicated because all the emerging proposed states to form a federalized form of government are not equal in God's gift. Some are well blessed, others are less blessed by God. Some are landlocked, some are not unified, their people cannot be united, and it might end up in the breakup of the unity of our country. Now, Mr. Chair, I know that Congress has passed a proposed constitutional convention to do the job that you're doing. I would also caution you in the Senate and in the House, because to do a con instead of a con-apps will be a disservice to the people of this country. It will burden the taxpayers too much. To have a con will entail billions of pesos. To do the work that can be done simply by Congress through a constituent assembly form. You will have to elect the members, who may not even know what government is, who may yet become tools of incumbent political powers in the country. And in addition, you will have to pay them salaries. You have to give them a building to do their job. You'll have to support them with the staff individually and collectively. You have to give them supplies, cars, travel expenses, medical expenses, and so forth and so on, representation expenses, and even maybe intelligence funds. My God, we're not that rich to be throwing away money for the simple amendments of the Constitution. Imagine how many school buildings can be established with the money that a CONCON will require. How many school buildings, how many houses can be built, how many irrigation canals can be added to our productive capacities, how many armored carriers, tanks, and airplanes we can buy out of the money that we will use for a CONCON, which can be done by Congress, the Senate, and the House. Now, there's nothing esoteric with these amendments that experienced legislators cannot do. That, Mr. Chairman, is my position.
Maraming salamat po, amin pong mahal na idolo ng lahat ng mambabatas. Maraming salamat po. Atin pong...
Mr. Chair, may I know, apart from the economic provisions, you have already introduced another bill to amend a portion of the, I cannot remember. May I see those bills?
I-welcome ko lang po ang ating pong mahal na senador, Francis Tolentino.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. From Cavite.
Opo. Bago po ang lahat, nais ko pong bigyan linaw ng ating pong komite ay hindi nagnanais na magdulot ng kalituhan sa lahat ng nakaraang araw. Gusto ko lamang po talagang ipaalam sa lahat na wala po tayong intensyon o imbitasyon para sa isang joint session ng Senado at Kamara patungkol po sa pagdinig ng RBH 6. Ang atin pong naunang imbitasyon sa ating mga ginagalang na miyembro ng malaking kapulungan ng House of Representatives, ang tinutukoy ko po ay ang Kamara para sa kagalang-galang na Congressman Richard Gomez, Congresswoman Maria Victoria Copilar, Congresswoman Divina Grace Yu, at ang atin pong isa ring idolo, Congressman Rufus Rodriguez. Hindi po ito kinansila. Ito lamang po ay inilipat sa ibang petsa. Ito po ay patutunayan na rin ng mga opisyal na dokumento na meron po tayo. Atin din pong kinikilala ang naunang panawagan ni Congressman Barzaga na gawin pong pribado muna ang pagpupulong ng kung magkakaroon ng pagpupulong ang dalawang kapulungan, ang mataas at ang malaking kapulungan. Kung magkakaroon po ng pagpupulong, ito po ay gagawing executive session. At gusto ko lamang din pong linawin na kailanman hindi po naging balakid ang aming Pangulo ng Senado, Senator Mig Subiri, sa anumang pong pagdinig, sa anumang pong ganap ng committee na ito, 100% pong nakasuporta ang presidente ng Senado. At akin din pong gustong sabihin, ito pong nangyayari ngayon na sabi nila, meron daw hidwaan, pero wala pong hidwaan dito. Wala po. Ito po ay natural lamang na pag-uusap ng mga mambabatas. Ito po talaga ay nagaganap. Ito po ay normal na magkaroon ng iba't ibang opinyon, iba't ibang mungkahi patungkol po dito. At ito pong pagdinig ngayong araw na ito bilang paggalang po sa ating bisita sapagkat ito po ay itinuturing po naming makasaysayan na maging bisita po ang isang ginagalang pong naging Senate President at parte po ng kasaysayan ng inang bayang Pilipinas. Ang atin pong pagdinig ngayon ay kinukonvert po natin na isang meeting. Ito po ay napakahalaga na pag-usapan po natin ang mga bagay na wala po tayong no holds barred, sabi nga nila. Dahil ito pong pagkakataon na to, hindi na po natin to maasahang maulit pa na ang atin pong panauhin sa kanyang mga bibig, sa kanya pong personal na paniniwala. Inuulit ko po, kanina po sa kanyang panimulang salita, kanya pong sinabi na nandito po siya bilang, hindi po bilang legal counsel ng mahal na Pangulong Bongbong Marcos, kundi sa kanya pong personal na kakayahan, ang kanya pong sasabihin ay kanyang personal na opinyon. At kaya po, mga mahal kong bisita natin ngayon at yung ating pong mga nanonood at kasama po sa media, isa po itong makasaysayang pag-uusap, meeting. Kaya po, kung wala pong tututol, ipagpapatuloy na po natin, magtatanong na po ang ating mga mahal na senador sa ating pong bisita upang magkaroon po tayo ng tinatawag po natin progresibong talakayan. Maraming salamat po. Meron po kayong gustong sabihin, mahal na Senador Jingo Estrada, ang dugo ng masa, tagapagtanggol ng ating mga kasambahay at ngayon, pati caregivers.
Lang po.
Opo.
Bakit natin na gagawin kon-kon ang pag-aamyanda ng ating saligang batas kung ang ilalagay lang natin na panibagong dagdag sa ating konstitusyon unless otherwise provided by law? Yun ang tanong ko sa Kongreso. Hindi ba magagawa, matatalakay ng Kongreso yung clause na yun unless otherwise provided by law? You're giving yourselves the power to decide whether we like foreign businesses to own lands or to participate in public utilities like communication, power, and everything, exploration of possible mineral resources. Hindi ba kaya ng Kongreso talakayin yun? At kailangan ang ibang ahensya nagagawa noon, yung mga, baka yung mga ihahalal, mas hindi nakakaintindi. Kung hindi maintindihan ng Kongreso yung unless otherwise provided by law, ay ano pa maintindihan ninyo? Ayun, ano pa ba yun? Dalawa yung bill na nakita na i-file na ninyo eh.
Dalawa po yun, mahal naming panauhin. Yung pong isa, ang una po, ang
Economic provision.
pareho po siyang economic provision po,
Ang nakalagay doon, ang idadagdag lang ninyo sa
unless otherwise.
provision unless provided by law.
Opo.
Yung isa ganun din.
Opo, yung isa po, final po yun ni Senator Win Gatchalian.
Tama yun eh. Naintindihan ng tao yung unless provided by law. Ibig sabihin nun, no. Excuse me. You are what I understand in what you want to do is instead of making the people decide these issues, you transfer the power to determine the advisability or non-advisability in the participation of foreign capital in the development of the country, instead of shackling, tying our people permanently to a restrictive provision where your Congress has no flexibility at all. Congress is supposed to be the guardian of the economy, of the progress of the country, its political stability, and so forth and so on. You are the sovereign, actually. The president executes and implement and enforce the decision of Congress. That's why I agree with your formulation that insert that provision unless otherwise provided by law, and corrects everything. Cannot Congress debate that simple phrase such that you have to call a constitution? I'm sorry to say this, but if you cannot tackle that, what can you tackle?
Mr. Chair. Manong, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Manong, just a basic question. Our Constitution is already 36 years old. And as you've mentioned, there are a lot of antiquated provisions in our Constitution. And do you think it's already time to amend the Constitution right now? And as you mentioned earlier, you are against CONCON because it entails a lot of expenses. Billions of pesos are going to be spent if we use the form of mode of CONCON. Are you amenable sa Constituent Assembly instead of CONCON, Manong?
Performing your legislative function, enacting laws, and allot 1 day or 2 days in a week to deal with your constitutional changes. There's nothing difficult to understand about inserting a clause like unless otherwise provided by law. Now, if you're going to overhaul the political portion of the Constitution, that will be different issue altogether. But again, as I said, if the overhaul involves only a change of form of government from presidential to parliamentary, then you do not need a constitutional convention. All you have to do is to pass a joint resolution, vote separately, with three-fourths votes, to adopt
Voting separately, Manong.
the Constitution. By the way, some say that the Senate is only a number in this. It cannot be. Both houses must vote separately, whether it is written in the Constitution or not. You have separate bodies in the Constitution. You have separate houses, separate sets of officials, separate journal, separate quorum, separate roll call.
So did the framers of the Constitution overlook the provision of voting jointly?
You do not have to write that in the Constitution, that you must vote separately. The very nature of your bicameralism dictates that you must vote separately.
Common sense.
Yeah.
Apo, Senator Tolentino, apo.
Senator Enrile. So in effect, Your Honor, you are amenable to the proposition that there is a fourth way of amending the Constitution. As what is written in the Constitution, you have Constitutional Convention, you have Constituent Assembly, and you have People's Initiative. But there are some commentators who've been saying that there is a fourth way. The fourth way is just pass an ordinary bill and then submit it for ratification by the people. Is that an appropriate way of interpreting the bicameralism mode? Pass a bill, approved by both houses, voting separately, submitted to the people for ratification. And ergo, you change the Constitution. Is that a fourth way, Your Honor?
Constituent Assembly or People's Initiative, you cannot ignore the people. It has to be ratified by them in a plebiscite. But as far as the method of adopting an amendment, there are three: Constitutional Convention, Constituent Assembly, and People's Initiative. The choice belongs to you as Congress of the people, except that the initiative of the people will have to emanate from the people themselves, but there is a vote and some requirements for that to happen. But by and large, the intent and concept, primary concept of the Constitution, it is Congress itself should be the one to introduce the amendments so that it will be expeditious, because it is the fastest way of achieving your amendments. It is no different in passing a law, only that the vote is different and the process is different. You involve the people. In a law, you don't. The vote is different.
If I may ask a follow-up question, Your Honor. I've been totally against, ever since, the granting of a wide latitude of power to the executive branch to formulate implementing rules and regulations. It has developed and evolved in such a way that they decide when to draft the IRR, when to issue the IRR, and sometimes the IRRs would be in conflict with the law, Your Honor. So the tenor of my question is that would that conflict with your earlier proposition of just adding the unless otherwise provided by law, because the law would be transformed again by the executive branch into their own version of IRR, which might be in conflict with the law.
The law cannot be modified by an IRR. The water of the spring cannot rise above the source. The law is complete in every respect. The one that will have to interpret it with finality is the Supreme Court. But as far as legislation is concerned, when you pass a law, it is complete in every respect. Whatever IRR there is must conform with the text, literal text, and spirit of the law. It cannot be modified. With due respect to my side of the government, I'm now a member of the cabinet. We cannot amend the law. We have no mandatory powers. That is a practice. I do not know how it was introduced, and it's being abused.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just made that clarification because if we really push for the unless otherwise provided for by law clause, that is again subject to abuse, and the oversight functions of Congress cannot extend to the nitty-gritty details of what the executive branch is doing unless overturned by the Supreme Court. But I agree, totally agree, Your Honor, Senator Enrile. Thank you, sir.
You can insert provision that any administrative or implementing regulation, as they call it, in connection with any particular law passed by Congress, should not go beyond the intent of the law. That may be done, but I think that it's unnecessary because every student of law, that is the first thing that we understood when we were students, that the rules and regulations issued to guide the agency of government and its employees in enforcing the law should not go beyond the intent and purpose and what they call spirit, if there is a spirit of the law.
I agree, Your Honor. In fact, our revised penal code, the new civil code of the Philippines, they don't have IRRs. They are self-executing, Your Honor. So I totally agree, Senator Enrile.
May follow-up question po kayo. Maraming salamat po, Senator Tolentino. Opo. Mahal naming panauhin, Ako po, meron pong mga nagsasabi na nung nakausap po namin ang isang Foreign Chamber of Commerce, ang sabi niya, bakit hindi na lang nyo i-delete yaang sa konstitusyon, i-delete na lang ninyo yung economic provision. Pwede po ba yun? Ang sabi po niya, ang sabi po nung isang...
Pwede rin naman, pero sa aking paningin, mas safer yung formulation ninyo, Mr. Chairman, sapagkat para maproteksyon na naman natin ang mga kababayan natin kung kailangan. Ngayon, pwede ninyong limitahan, halimbawa, you can limit the quantity of participation in the economy. Ngayon, 60-40. Hindi mo mababago yun. Pero wala tayong kapital na sapat upang matugunan natin ang pangangailangan natin eh. Credit is global. Right now, the interest is going up and credit is becoming scarce. Problema ang mga bangko sa ibang bansa. Dadating yan sa atin. We do not have enough capital here. And yet, our population is growing and we need investments, jobs. Without investment, you do not have jobs. And without jobs, you do not have consumers, you do not have taxpayers. So what happens to the society? It will dwindle, it will struggle until it collapses. So that we will have flexibility, give to Congress the decision to contract or expand the participation of foreign money, direct investment into our economy. After all, they cannot take out this factory and bring it home. They cannot take out the land that they will produce if they reclaim around all the islands of the country. It stays here. Can tell them go home. But we should not do that because nobody will ever come and help us if we do that. We must be friendly to foreign business as everyone else on the planet. From Timbuktu all the way to the Arctic Circle and Antarctic.
Mahal na panauhin. Ibig niyo pong sabihin, doon po sa provision, na banggit niyo po yung sa lupa. Sa provision po, doon sa konstitusyon kasi ayos, bawal nga po magkaroon ng ang foreigner. Palagay niyo po, panahon na po para payagan po sila.
Kaya pag insert mo yung unless provided by law, ang Kongreso ang magsasabi kung 60-40 yan. Pero pwedeng baguhin, pwedeng gawing 20-70 or 55-45 ang hatian or 100% foreigner kung nuclear plant, halimbawa. Mahal na ngayon, nung ginagawa yung Bataan, magkano ba yung Bataan nuclear plant? $16 million. Ngayon, yung $16 million na yun, kung ginawa natin, billion dollar na ngayon yun. At hindi lang yun. Kung hindi sinira yung planta na yun, mas nauna pa tayo sa Iran at saka sa North Korea na magkaroon ng nuclear bomb. At hindi tayo inaapi ng mga ibang bansa. Kalukuhan yung utak ng mga gumawa niyan eh.
Meron po kayong mahal na panahon. Meron po kasing maliit na diskusyon ang nangyayari patungkol po sa sabi po ng ilang mga abogado, hindi daw po constitutional yung mga ginawang batas ng 18th Congress patungkol po halimbawa katulad po noong Public Service Act. Ang sinasabi po daw po kasi doon na ito daw po ay bumangga sa konstitusyon. Ang sabi po ng mga abogado na nag-file sa Supreme Court, ang sabi nila, hindi pwedeng manaig ang saligang batas, ang normal na batas sa saligang batas. Dahil ang saligang batas, pinakamataas yan. Yun daw pong Public Service Act dinefine niya yung sinasabi ng saligang batas. Sa saligang batas, 60-40. Pero yung Public Service Act, ginawa po niyang pwedeng maging 100% ownership.
Hindi pwede yun, Mr. Chair. Kung sinabi ng saligang batas 60-40, hindi mo mababago yun. Pero kung sinabi ng saligang batas 60-40, unless otherwise provided by law, anytime pwedeng baguhin ng Kongreso, pwedeng tanggalin momentarily yung 60-40 at ibalik later on, or maraming flexible ka. Flexible. At magmamando ang Kongreso as it should be. Of course, with the advice and consent of the President. Always. There must be, although the three branches of government are supposed to be separate and independent from one another, they must also be coordinate. They must coordinate not for themselves but for the country and her people.
Paano po yun, mahal naming panauhin? Naglabas na po ng IRR ang naglabas po ng IRR yung NEDA. Naglabas po sila ng IRR para doon sa Public Service Act. Paano po kaya yun? Parang conflicting po talaga sa konstitusyon. Opo.
Sa aking paningin, I think if that is brought to the Supreme Court, they will throw it in the basura. Unless somehow somebody amended the Constitution that we do not know. The Constitution is the ultimate legal organ of our society. It is the organizing document for the Republic of the Philippines. And you cannot modify it unless you go through CONAS or CONCON or People's Initiative. Yung People's Initiative, tingi-tingi yun eh. Kung major revision, you need a constitutional convention. But itong mga panukala na pinag-uusapan ngayon eh, ano ba komplikado no unless otherwise provided by law? Even a first year law student will understand that.
Maganda po yung punto po ninyo, mahal naming panauhin. Doon po sa, kanina po, bago po kayo, doon po sa inyong panimulang salita, ang linaw po ng sinabi ninyo na ang Supreme Court lang po ang pwedeng mag-interpret ng batas.
Kahit na ang Supreme Court ang interpreter, they cannot go beyond the limitations provided by the Constitution. Hindi open-end dyan eh. Ang powers, there's always a red line.
Ang function po, apo.
Presidente, Commander-in-Chief provision, tinanggal nila yung eminent, yung phrase na yun. War, invasion, rebellion, insurrection, or eminent thereof. Yung eminent thereof, tinanggal nila. Gusto niyo ipasok, dapat lang. Dahil kung may darating na gera, hindi ka magagalaw. Antayin mo na nandyan na sa mga karagatan natin at sasalakayin na tayo bago gumalaw yung commander-in-chief. Hindi pwede yun eh. Yung rebellion, nakikita mo na siya na may armado na grupo na lalaban sa gobyerno, hindi ka makagalaw hanggang magputukan. Pag nagputukan na, talo na yung gobyerno. Kaya binigay yung power of the President to declare martial law for an eminent condition of war, rebellion, or insurrection. Para paghandaan ka agad. Para walang nadanak na dugo. Hindi ko maintindihan yung mga gumawa ng saligang batas natin.
Po, na, yung nabanggit niyo po, mahal naming panauhin, ito po yung nasa 1987 na constitution din po na binago po nila yung patungkol po sa pagdideklara ng martial law. Tinanggal po nila yung imminent danger. Yun po yung binabanggit ng ating mahal na panauhin na ito po talaga isa sa mga kailangan po talaga na maamenda sa konstitusyon, lalong-lalo na po sa nangyayaring sitwasyon ngayon sa buong mundo na napaka-alanganin po talaga. Ito po yung panahon talaga na ang buong mundo ay hindi lamang po sa Asia, no, pati po sa Europa. Nakikita po natin ngayon yan na nagkakaroon po ng mga digmaan doon. At talaga pong dapat din po talagang harapin yung sinasabi po ng ating mahal na panuin patungkol po dito sa function ng Commander-in-Chief. Balikan ko lang po yung kanina, mahal na panauhin. Bali po, ang Kongreso po, ang malaking kapulungan at ang mataas na kapulungan, wala po kaming kapangyarihan na i-define ang saligang batas. Wala po kaming kapangyarihan noon o i-interpret.
Hindi kayo maaaring gumawa ng batas to interpret the Constitution. Pwede na gawin ninyo yun. Pero pag inakyat nila, mag-file ng case at iakyat sa Korte Suprema, ibabasura nila yun. Kung wala, pwede wala. But at a certain point in time, somebody will file a case. And that will be declared void. Because you cannot modify the Constitution. The executive and the legislative cannot modify the Constitution. Maybe the Supreme Court can interpret a provision of the Constitution and that will become a part of our legal system, yung decision na yun. But only to interpret a provision of the Constitution. They cannot modify it by way of amending it. Kagaya niyang kwan. Yun ang pangalawa na bill na pinasok ninyo, yung eminent thereof. Doon sa Commander-in-Chief provision. Anong kabigatan na hindi naintindihan ng Kongreso? Hindi magagawa ng Kongreso. At kailangan mo ang kon-kon. My God. For such a small clause, to spend billions to change it is foolish. Imagine how many schools you can build.
28 billion po. 28 billion po ang gagastusin kapag ka-con-con, 28 billion.
Hindi lang, Mr. Chair. Pag nandyan na yan, you cannot control it. They can go to Germany, they can go to Spain, they can go to Canada to understand what they're going to do. I was not born only yesterday.
Sa paniwala po ninyo, mahal naming panauhin, talagang ito na po talaga ang panahon.
Payat ang 100 billion dyan.
100 billion po. Opo. Sa palagay nyo po,
By the way, uusangin natin yan.
yun nga po, uutangin daw natin yun. Sa palagay nyo po, ito na po yung panahon para amendahan po ang...
Dapat kahapon pa. Alam mo, Mr. Chair, yung economic provision, very important yan eh. Sino ba talaga ang gusto nating tulungan sa economic provision na yan? Yung mga mayayaman? I'm not against the rich, ano? They can protect themselves. But because of that 60-40, they monopolize the business in the country. So they can control the amount of jobs that there is. Control the market. Walang competition. But if you open up the country to foreign investment by inserting that provision, unless otherwise provided by law, you can create more jobs. You will increase the tax base of the country. You increase the consuming power of the country. It will become an attractive market for foreigners to come because the people have jobs and they have the economic power to buy. Nakalink lahat yan eh.
Chairman, just a point of
Sige po, Senator Tolentino.
Yes, the OSA, the security officers here to ask the residents of the other room to tone down their voice because this is an important matter. We cannot hear because they have we hear conflicting voices from the other side of these walls, Mr. Chairman.
May talk show dun eh.
Pwede pong utusan yung USA na patahimikin muna yung sa kabila. This is more important.
Mga kababayan nating kapanalig sa USA, pwede po bang pakiusapan natin yung talent show sa kabila na okay na po. Opo. Mahal naming panauhin, sa palagay niyo po ba, ito pong malaking kapulungan, ano po kaya ang naghudyat sa kanila upang itulak po ang konkon? Na pwede naman pong con-us pala. Ano po kaya ang agenda nila? Bakit konkon ang kanilang itinutulak?
Na ma-achieve yung gusto ninyong gawin through con-us. At kailangan na natin yan. I will tell you, as far as I know, as you ask the economists of the country, if I'm wrong, there are only 3 ways to make an economy grow. Investment, either by the government or by the private sector. You invest, you create jobs, you grow the economy. Consumption. If you have consumers, which requires investment, that is another. And the third is export. Grow, make your economy grow. Kagaya ng ano bang export natin ngayon? Sustaining our economy. Human beings. Kaya anong pinag-uusapan namin dito sa Senado, yung reproductive bill, kamilan ni Tito Soto ang umupos. Ang sponsor, si Miriam at saka si Pia. Kinontra namin because if you're going to tinker with the birth rate of the country, popularly, that is a popular position. Pero tingnan mo ngayon sa buong mundo, nag-i-import sila ng mga tao dahil matatanda na ang population nila. You cannot produce a worker in a day just like going to a sari-sari store. You need 20 years to have a young worker and a young taxpayer. That's why China is having a problem. Russia is having a problem. Japan is having a problem. They're importing. Germany, all the big countries, because they went into a policy of decreasing their population. Now they are suffering, and that is one of the dangers why the global economy will collapse. Wala na mga bata na workers. Kaya I think about the retirement laws and so forth and so on, because yung nauuna, mas marami yung nagre-retire kaysa doon sa pumapasok na pumalit sa kanila. They cannot sustain to support the pension requirement of the retiring cohorts of population. Kaya ang Amerika, earlier, nakita nila yung problema na yun, they reverse it. Kaya na matatag sila.
Mahal naming panauhin, ito po yung grand question na po ito. Last and grand question. Kung meron po kayong idadagdag, Senator Jingo Estrada, okay na po kayo. Senator Tolentino, meron po, in-advise po kasi kami ng staff ng ating mahal na panauhin na meron po siyang meeting ng 2:00. Last question ko na po ito.
We can let go of our...
Okay po. Meron na po akong last question lang. Opo.
Mr. Chair,
Opo, sir.
Ano ba ang dahilan na kon ang gusto ng Kamara? Ano ang dahilan? Hindi nila kaya? Tatalakayin yung mga minumungkahin ninyo na amendment?
Yun po sana po ang aking huling tanong. Kasi po ang naguguluhan din po ako, mahal naming panauhin, kasi yung pong sa akin pong pagka piecemeal amendments, talagang con-as po talaga. Opo.
27 amendments. Hindi nangyari sa isang panahon yon. They were done piecemeal over time. Basahin ninyo ang history ng saligang batas ng Amerika. Ang daming amendments. Pero doon sa yung Bill of Rights nila, hindi kagaya natin, ginawa natin in one convention yan. Yung Bill of Rights noong 1935. Pero sa kanila, centuries ang nangyari. 10 amendments over a long period of time. Hindi kagaya natin na noong 1935, kinopya natin yung mga amendments nila in one convention. Ganyan din ang mga ibang bansa sa buong mundo. Germany, federalism. Yan ang experience nila because they had a different historical experience from us. Kaya sinasabi ko, itong federalism na magandang pakinggan ang federalism. Pero let's take the case of Cordillera. You make it into a state, landlocked. Sa magagaling ang hanap buhay ng Cordillera? Okay sa akin kung magiging federalized tayo sapagkat my area is blessed with a valley that can support 40 million people. It has the longest and biggest river in this country, and we have a coastline and a possible port that can be converted into an international port. But how about the others? Manila, yes, because it is very developed. Cebu, maybe. Pero yung mga ibang parte ng Pilipinas, how can they become a state, autonomous and self-sufficient?
Opo. Sige po, Senator Tolentino.
Isa na lang po. Sabi ko po, hindi na ako magtatanong, Your Honor, pero alam ko po nagpapaalam na kayo, paalis na kayo, Senator Enrile. Yung nabanggit niyo po kanina, yung 27 amendments ng saligang batas ng Estados Unidos na generational po yung pagbabago. Parang generational. So yung konsepto po ng we, the sovereign people, kanila po yun, per generation.
As needed.
As needed po.
As needed. Now we need to relax our restrictive
Economic provisions.
especially now. I'm telling you, globalization is going to collapse. Freedom of the seas will end. Free trade will end. Kanya-kanya yan. You have to have a navy to protect your imports and exports. Where do we get our fuel? Persian Gulf, West Africa, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Siberia. We do not have any source of energy in Asia. No. Indonesia produces energy, but not even enough for their local use. China, yan ang weakness niya. 80% of its energy is imported. Sarhan nila yung Strait of Hormuz or Malacca. Saan kukuha ng enerhiya ang China? It imports 70% of its food. Tayo, saan natin, we do not even have enough coal. We have to import coal from Australia. Magkagara, saan tayo kukuha? That is why we need, if we can afford, to reverse our policy and have a nuclear plant in the country. And we tied ourselves under the 1987 Constitution by claiming that we are modern, no nuclear power, sumunod tayo doon sa mga superpower na ayaw nila magkaroon ng nuclear. Yung mga maliliit na bansa, ngayon, hindi naman nila mag-control ng North Korea. Pakistan has its nuclear power. India, soon maybe Vietnam, soon maybe Malaysia, Indonesia, ang Pilipinas. Ano? Wala na ako rito ngayon, pero some of you are still here. And I don't want you to become slaves of other countries.
Sa palagay niyo po, mahal naming panauhin, kailangan na rin po namin amendahan yan. Kaagad.
Kailangan.
Opo. Urgent po yan. Opo.
Kailangan na amendahan. Pero hindi naman go to the other extreme na open, kagad.
Opo.
You give it to Congress the power to determine how much and when. That is why yung itinagdag ninyo, simple lang yun, unless otherwise provided by law. Who provides it by law? Congress.
Opo. Meron pa po kayong mga mahal nating senador, meron pa po kayong tanong at ako
I will not pursue my questions anymore, Your Honor, because you've answered it more than enough, Senator Enrile.
Opo. Bilang baka meron pong gustong idagdag yung ating mahal na panauhin, the words of wisdom from our walking history and our unsung heroes who fought for the country against the for me, sir, you are a hero.
Alam mo, Mr. Senator, kaya ako ganito, mahal ko itong bayan ko, pinaglaban ko ito. Bata pa ako, lumaban na kami na sa mga Hapon. Yung henerasyon namin, maraming nalagas. At inabutan kami ng panahon na lumaban walang bala. Kaya pana at bow and arrow ang ginamit namin para labanan ang mga Hapon sa bandang huli. Wala kaming baril. May baril kami noon, Springfield at saka Enfield sa umpisa. Walang carbine, wala pang garand. Kaya kami mga gerilya, karamihan, gerilyang kanin hanggang 1945 nung dumating yung supply namin ng carbine and garan. At doon ilinanding sa Banggi. Doon sa aming lugar. Pero between 1941 up to end of 1944, naubos ang bala namin. Kaya ang pinaglaban namin, dahil pinagpapatay kami ng mga Hapon, ay bow and arrow, pana. At ang mga lumaban para sa ating bayan ay yung mga aborigines natin, mga Ita, ang kasama namin. Huwag ninyong mamata-matahin yung mga Ita na yan sapagkat mas marami sa kanilang namatay nung panahon ng gera.
Bilang inyo pong tagapangulo. Sa mga